My name's Caitlin Ely. I'm going to be presenting a vocabulary lesson today for a first grade class. The objective for this lesson would be to teach students to use sentence level context as clues to the meaning of word or phrases. So we're going to be teaching them how to um, find and use context clues for a tricky or a targeted word. And the importance of this lesson is that it's going to teach students how to independently grow their own vocabulary. They're going to be able to read harder text and comprehend it at the same time. So it's going to make more fluent readers in the end. To start the lesson, we would review a story that we've already covered, Camping Spree with Mr. McGee, for this review. And it's all verbal, no visuals or anything. We're just going to talk about settings, characters, and plot sequence. How to retell a story using those particular terms. So I'd start by asking if anyone remembered the story. Where did this story take place? Where do we see it happening? In the woods. What is the reading term that we use for that setting? Who are the people or things that the story is about? It's about Mr. McGee and his dog Dee. What is the vocabulary term or the reading term that we learned for that? Characters. If you were going to tell someone this story who'd never heard it before, how would you start and how would you end? So they'd start at the beginning of the story, how it was introduced, the events that took place in the middle, and then the end. That's how we'd retell it. And then I would move on to our objective motivation. So for the motivation, I'm going to display, I have 5 vocabulary words for this lesson. They are scarcely, envious, trifle, dreadful, and wilted. I'd display them and I'd ask if anyone knew the meaning of these words. And for a first grade class, it's not probable that they do. So I'd explain that we're going to read a book that shows us these words, and we're going to use the context clues, the information, the pictures that the author gives us to use to find the meaning of these words. So we're going to be detectives today. We don't always know what the word means, but a lot of times the author or the illustrator, they'll leave hints for the word. So while I'm reading the word, I want you to really listen, and I want you to listen for your vocabulary words and listen to the sentence before and the sentence after to see if you can figure out what the word means. So the book I would be reading with the vocabulary words is Chrysanthemum. I don't have a copy of it, but I have the digital from Amazon Free Time for my kids. So I'll just read you a little section with at least one vocabulary word on it, because I would want to try to emphasize the sentence before the vocabulary word with it and then after to try to draw their attention to any context clues. So for instance, "Welcome home," said her mother. "Welcome home," said her father. "School's no place for me," said Chrysanthemum. "They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me." "Oh, psh," said her mother. "They're just jealous and envious and begrudged and discontented," and you get it. So I would try to emphasize those words to help them, listen for context clues around it. And then we would move on to the first activity. This is called word fill-in activity, and you can personalize it to fit your lesson or to fit your vocabulary words. But I used sentences that are correspond with our read aloud, Chrysanthemum. So I would have these displayed either using a document scanner, or I could put them in a pocket chart on the whiteboard, or whatever works for you. But you'll have sentences with blanks, and then you'll have all your vocabulary words on another side where they can see what their options are. So I would model it first. I'd say, just like a flower may do if it does not have sun or water, Chrysanthemum blank when her classmates made fun of her name. So let's see. Would Chrysanthemum trifle when her classmates made fun of her name? No, that don't sound right. What about wilted? Would she wilt? What does a flower do when it does not have water? It starts to droop, it dies. Another word for that would be what? Wilted. Good. And then I would call on students to help me finish completing this activity together as a class, as a whole. And I would have other students, I'd call others to give me the context clues that may support or, disclaim the vocabulary word that their classmates gave. So once we finished that, I would move on to a paired group activity that's called If the Word Fits. I would group students by groups of 2. I'd model it before we began, so they would each get a deck of cards. And the deck of cards is going to have a sentence with the vocabulary word in it, and then a question. And then the answer is going to be either underlined or highlighted or whatever, so they know. So one student will grab a card, and they'll be the teacher, and they'll read the sentence. Lexi was envious of Sam's new pink backpack and wished she had one like it. Was Lexi happy that Sam got a new backpack or jealous? And they would have their teammate, their grouped pair, answer the question. And then they would put the card down on another section, and the other student would take a turn being the teacher. They would grab a card. And they're going to know the right answer because it's going to be highlighted. So they'll work together to use the context clues in those to help them figure out the answers. And those are also our targeted vocabulary words for the lesson. For early finishers this week, for this lesson, I've got a vocabulary picture matchup, context clues using pictures. So you'll have pictures that go along with all your vocabulary words. That's my picture. Trifle, wilted, envious, and dreadful. And you can play this several different ways. You can play it as a matchup, have students quietly, grab the bag of cards wherever you place them in the classroom, and they can just set them out on their desk, like so, with the definitions on another card, and they can take turns grabbing one picture card stack, dreadful, and one vocabulary, dreadful. Feeling or showing of jealousy. Does this girl in this picture look jealous? Does she look like she's having any feelings of jealousy? No. So that's not a matchup, so you can put them back down. Or you could just simply match them. Just have all of them where you could see them, not upside down, and you could just match them up. Boom. And so on. For my closure this week, for this lesson, I would use my smartboard, and I'm going to pull up the pages of Chrysanthemum using the smartboard, so I need a digital copy of the book. And I would go to the pages that have the words, reread it, and call on students to come to the whiteboard and highlight the context clues that help them understand the meaning of the word. So just like we read right here, let me see if I can zoom in on it. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me. Oh, psh, said her mother. They're just jealous and envious. Boo, stop. And what? And envious. Okay, let's read on to the end of the sentence and see if we see any more context clues. And begrudging and I'm sorry, it's a little discontented. Okay. And discontented. This is what you get for reading on a cell phone. Okay. Now, I would call on a student. We see the word. I would circle it. And then I would ask them to highlight it. I mean, a smartboard you can walk up, I'm sure you know, and touch and highlight and do whatever, draw. Which words helped them understand the meaning of envious. And right before that, we see, oh, psh, said her mother. They're just jealous. They're what? They're jealous. And then she uses several other words to describe jealous, or several other words that relate to the word jealous. So jealous would be a context clue. And most first graders are going to know what the word jealous means. They've heard it since they were little. So that would be one. And we would move on through the book until we finished all the vocabulary words. And for my enrichment on this week, for the students that need a little bit extra challenge, I would give them a Chrysanthemum vocabulary sheet to complete. Now, they're going to need a copy of the book as well. And I would give them other targeted words or difficult words that they might not know. And I would ask them to go find these words in the story, find the context clues that you can find, and come up with what the word means. What do you think the word means in your own words? I mean, they're not going to define it like the Webster Dictionary, but I want them to find context clues, and using those context clues, define the word in their own words. And for the homework this week, It's kind of similar. We're going to use context clues. We want to hear sentences with all our vocabulary words, highlight any context clues that help you define the word or understand it, and in your own words, tell me what each of these words means using the context clues. Let me see what else I have. Remediations for students that aren't getting it right off the bat. What I'm going to do for them is group them by pairs of two, and either a para or me myself will work with them. We're going to have our vocabulary words in the middle of each of these. So, for instance, dreadful. They're going to find the word, and then they're going to, in the bubbles around, they're going to work together. They're going to work together and find any context clues in the story that they see that help them understand what this word means. And then together, they're going to, in their own words, tell what the word means using the outside bubbles. And there will be someone there to monitor them or direct them if they're getting off track or not understanding really well. So that is my remediation. Special needs, the only thing I haven't talked about. So for my English language learner students, I'm going to provide audiobooks for any class stories that we were covering. And then I will provide a vocabulary dictionary of sorts, maybe just a printout for their binder. I'm not sure how I'll have, my classroom organize my material, but either a binder or printouts for them with their vocabulary words that we've already covered, defined for them to refer to during class or during assignments. And then I'm also, for my reading disability students, going to provide a children's dictionary for each of them to use during reading, and a context clue visual will be displayed in the classroom where they can see it for things that to look for when we're using context clues to define a word. So word parts, helping words, examples, words you know already, synonyms, antonyms. So that will be displayed for them to use as well. I covered it all? I think so. So that would be it for vocabulary lesson for this week. So thanks for listening.